Section 11.2, Hyperbolas, Part 2. Now remember, we've already talked about the equations for horizontal and vertical hyperbolas. Just remember that now we have a minus sign in between the two, and so for horizontal, your x minus h quantity squared over a squared is first, and for vertical, the y minus k squared over a squared is first there. Now, when you are looking at this first equation, we want to put it in standard form. This is the general form. Now, what you want to do is first get your x's together and your y's together like I've done already, and take your constant to the other side. Now, in order to do this, we're going to have to complete the square. So in order to complete the square, remember we can't have a number in front of our quadratic term, so I want to factor that out. So in order to factor this out, I would get 16 parentheses, this would become x squared, and then we factor out the 16 from the 96, which gives me 6x, and then I'm going to close my parentheses because I'm going to do the x's together, and then minus 4 times, this becomes y squared minus because we have to factor out the negative with the 4, so that would become plus 10y equals negative 108. Then the next step is I need to complete the square, so I'm going to add my spaces in. So I have 16 times x squared plus 6x. It's always plus your number that completes the square and minus it. And then for the second part, we have minus 4 parentheses y squared plus 10y plus the number minus it equals negative 108. Then to complete the square, I'm going to take half my linear term and square it. So this is right here, the linear term. So half of 6 is 3, and 3 squared is 9. So I'm adding and subtracting 9. Here's half my linear term, which is 10. So half of 10 is 5, and 5 squared is 25. Now that I have that, I always want to complete the square with the first 3 terms with the plus. So that means I'm going to be able to factor that part now that I completed the square. So for the first one, I have the 16 in front. I'm going to put it in a double set of parentheses. So this would factor into x plus 3 times x plus 3. So this becomes x plus 3 quantity squared minus the 9. And notice I kept it in parentheses because the 16 is being multiplied by everything in this parentheses, including the minus 9. So I need to remember to do that when I take it out. And then over here, I have minus 4, and this becomes y plus 5 times y plus 5, which becomes y plus 5 squared. And again, I put it in the double parentheses because right now I'm going to have to remember to take this 16 and multiply it by both these terms here and the negative 4 by both these terms here. So when I do that, I get 16 times x plus 3 squared, and then 16 times negative 9 is negative 144. And then for the next one, I have minus 4y plus 5 quantity squared, and then negative 4 times negative 25 becomes a plus 100. Now I want to get everything that's a constant to the other side, so that means I'm going to take the 144 and add it to the other side. And I'm going to take the 100 and subtract it. And when I do that, I end up with 16 times x plus 3 quantity squared. And this one gives me minus 4 times y plus 5 quantity squared is equal to negative 108 plus 144 minus 100 is negative 64. Now remember, we're not done because we don't like to have the number be something other than 1 to the other side of the equal, so we're going to divide all of this by negative 64, so each term. So remember that number has to be 1. And now all I have to do is go ahead and simplify it. So when I simplify this, because we have the negative here, we know it's going to be negative x plus 3 quantity squared over, and 16 over the 64 gives me a value of 4. And then this becomes plus because we have a minus and a minus here. So for the next one, I have plus and this becomes y plus 5 quantity squared over 4 over 16 just becomes 16, and this is equal to 1 now. So now from this, I can start writing down some things that I know. If I write this in the correct standard form, we don't usually like to have the negative in front, so I'm going to write this with the y plus 5 squared over 16, and then subtract that from the x plus 3 squared over 4. So that's actually the correct way to write it. So the direction for this we know is going to be, since the y is not negative and the x is negative, we know it's going to be vertical. My a I get from here. So remember, this is a squared, so the square root of 16 is equal to 4. Here's my b value. So the square root of 4 is 2. To get c, remember, c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared now, instead of subtracting like we did for the ellipses. So c squared is equal to 16 plus 4. So c squared is equal to 20, and so c is equal to the square root of 20, which we can reduce into 2 root 5. And remember, the c is going to help us find our focus. Now I want to find the center of my graph. So the center is going to be at, remember this is still your h and this is still your k. So -3, because remember it's opposite, and -5. So I'm going to plot that on my graph first, -3 and -5, which would be right here. Now remember we talked from this is how I'm going to, now I need to draw my box. How do I know which direction to go? Look at your numerator. That's going to tell you. So here we have the 16 underneath the y, and so the a value we know for that is 4. So that means I'm going to go up 4 and I'm going to count down 4, which would be here and here. So that's going to be the outline of my box that I'm going to draw that we talked about. And so now on this side I have 4, so that means because it's underneath the x, I'm going to go to the right 2 and to the left 2. Oops, not too many there. Now I want to draw in my box. So for your box, remember that's going to help us find our asymptotes and help us with our graph. So this right here would be the box. Now from that, remember we can, we already know what our vertices are going to be because this is going to be a vertical graph. I know that I have a vertice right here and right here. So that's going to be a maximum slash a minimum because the problem is going to go up and down. So I know my vertices are at this case, -3, -1, and also at -3, -9. And I'm going to draw my asymptotes in now. See how well I can do this on the smartboard. Oh, not bad. A little off, but that's okay. We can try to see if we can fix it. Of course, you have your ruler and graph paper, so it'll make it a little bit easier than smartboard. Here we go. That's better. So that's one of my asymptotes, and then the other asymptote will be on the other side of the corners of the box. So here we go. So that's my other asymptote. And remember that helps us guide it and help us guide our graphs. So now that I have my vertices, I know that my graph is opening up and down. So from here, I know that my graph is going to go this way and start from here and going this way. The last thing that I want to find is my foci. So in order to find my foci, I need to look at my C value, which is 2 root 5. So that means that from my vertices, I'm going to go up, and from this vertex, I'm going up 2 root 5, and from this vertex, I'm going down 2 root 5. So it's going to be really hard to see in the graph because it's so close. So it's about somewhere in there, and right around there. It's real hard to see because it's such a small number, and this is a very small graph, so I probably should have used a little bit of bigger of a graph, but that's everything that we have. So then I know that since we went vertical, my focal points were at, from my center, so we have -3 and -5 plus or minus 2 root 5. So that's how I found them. So let's go ahead and do the next one. So for this one, we're going to do the same thing. The first thing we want to do is put this in standard form. So to put this in standard form, get your x's together and your y's. Take the constant to the other side. And now we're going to factor out any numbers that we have in front of the variables. So here I'm factoring out the 9. Oops. Use red here. And I'm going to have to complete my square. Oops, I should do. There we go. And then here we're factoring out the -4. Don't forget to change that sign right there because we factor out the negative. So these blank spaces, remember, are for when we're completing our square. So remember, to complete the square, it's half your linear term squared. So half of 2 is 1, and 1 squared is 1. So we're adding and subtracting it. Here, my linear term is 6, so half of 6 is 3, and 3 squared is 9. So I'm adding and subtracting 9. So now I can go ahead and complete my square. So it usually helps me to highlight, so I'm doing it with these 3 terms right here. So with this, I would get 9. Don't forget to use double parentheses. So x plus 1 squared, because that when you multiply it out, you get x squared plus 2x plus 1. And then over here, we have -4 times, don't forget your double parentheses, y plus 3, because y plus 3 squared gives you y squared plus 6y plus 9. Now I need to take the number in front and multiply it by each of my terms. So when I do that, I get 9 times x plus 1 quantity squared minus 9. Over here, I get -4 times quantity y plus 3 squared, and then -4 times negative, don't forget to change the sign, becomes plus. And so we multiply that, we get plus 36. And then we're going to take the 9 to the other side by adding it, and the 36 to the other side by subtracting it. And so here I have 9 times x plus 1 squared, and then this side is -4 times y plus 3 squared equals 63 plus 9 minus 36 gives us 36. And then now I want to divide everything by 36, because remember that number there has to be 1. So after I divide it by 36, I can go ahead and simplify it and write it in my standard form. So I have x plus 1 squared over 4, and then this one becomes minus y plus 3 squared over 9 equals 1. So now I have my equation, and I can start to graph this. So for this equation, the direction we know is horizontal because the y has the negative in front of it. So that means left and right. My a, in this case, since we have 4 here, so a would be equal to 2, and this is going to give me my b, so that since that's squared, it's b is going to be equal to 3. To find c squared equals a squared plus b squared. So c is equal to 4 plus 9, which gives us 13, so c squared. So c is equal to root 13, which doesn't simplify. I know the center of my circle is at -1 and -3. So that's what I'm going to put down. So -1, -1, 2, 3, which would be here. Now I can draw my box. So since above my x we have the a value of 2, and it's above the x, we go left and right 2. So here and here. And then since this one, 9, is underneath the y, that means b is equal to 3, so we're going up 3 and down 3. And now I can make the box. And from there I can draw my asymptotes. So now I have my asymptotes on my graph. I just draw to the corners. And I can go ahead and start graphing my what my parabola is going to look like. So I know that this is a vertice here and this is right here. So my graph is going to go this way and this way because it always follows your asymptotes. And then the next step would be to find your focal point. So let's write down those vertices first. So we have 1 and -3, because that was here. And then this one right here gave us -3, -3. And then I know that the square root of 13 is my c value. So since I'm going left or right, I'm going to change my x coordinate of my center. So -1 plus or minus root 13, comma, -3 are going to give me my focal points, which when I do that end up being around here, somewhere in the middle, and I think it's somewhere right here. It's hard to tell in this graph because it's hard to graph without pencil. Okay, so that's everything we need for that graph. Let's go ahead and do the last two. For these, or the last, yes, for these we want to write the equation of the hyperbola. If you need a graph, it's provided. I like to, anytime I'm given these problems, to start to sketch it because it helps me visualize what I'm trying to find. I have the center of my graph, which is at -5, 4. So right here. And then it says that one vertex is at -5, 6. And the other vertex is, and the focus is at, so this is the vertex, and then this is the center, and we have the focus at -5, 9, which would be here. So that is going to give me my c value distance from here to here. So then for this, I know that c squared equals a squared plus b squared. I can find this distance from the center to the vertex, which is 2. So I know in this case, since the focus is above my vertex, which is vertical, I know it's going to be a vertical graph, which means the equation I'm using is y minus k squared over a squared minus x minus h squared over b squared. So then for this one, I know what the center is because we were given that, so we can write that in. So we have y minus 4 squared, and then this would be x minus -5, so plus 5 squared. And I know that my a value is the distance from the center to the vertex, which in this case is equal to a value of 2. So a equals 2, so a squared is 4, so that goes here. Now I just need to figure out what b is. So I know my distance of c, And if you look, you can count from here to here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is my C value because it's distance from the center to the focus. So we have 5 squared equals 2 squared plus b squared, so 25 equals 4 plus b squared. So in this case, we get b squared equals 21, and I don't even need to take the square root of that because I use b squared in my equation, and that would be everything that I need. So let's go ahead and do the next one. And if I didn't draw a picture for that, I probably wouldn't be able to visualize it as good. Number 4. So for number 4, we have the focal points which are at -3 and 4. And -3, -8. And then it gives us, so this is, I'm going to put F there for focal point. And then it gives us that the vertex is at -3, 2 here. And remember, the distance from the vertex to the focal point has to be the same, so I know that the other one is going to be right there. I also know that the distance has to be in between these points for the center. So if I count from, I'm just going to count from here to here, I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that means that half of that is equal to 4. So if I count down 1, 2, 3, 4, I can find the center. So the center would be right there at -3, -2. So I guess I should write center so we don't get confused with the C value. So now that I have the center, I also have the distance from the center to my vertices, which we said was 4. So that tells me my A value is equal to 4. I know that for this, this is also going to be a vertical hyperbola because my foci are on the line with the center above and below it. So I know I'm going to use the equation that I used from the last one, which was up above if you don't remember. So then for this one, we're going to do, start writing our equation. So we have y, remember this is your h and your k, so y minus -2, which becomes +2 squared, minus x minus -3, so +3 squared. We know this is all going to be equal to 1. I know my a value is 4, so 4 squared is 16. I just need to figure out what b squared is equal to. And to find that, I can use the fact that I know c squared equals a squared plus b squared. So remember, c is a distance from your focal point to the center, so from here to here. So that distance, so distance from here to here. So if we count, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So c equals 6, so c squared is 36. A squared is 16. And when we solve, we get b squared equals 20. I don't even need to find b because I can just go ahead and write 20 here. And that would be my solution. So what we are going to do with this, we're going to practice some more in class. So make sure that you have this ready to go when you get in class.